Oh, goody.
All right, what is up, everybody? Zombies here again, and today doing a little bit of a kind of reflection on the Chi event. So this is something we actually talked about a little bit on the last episode of our podcast, The Fighting Pit. Definitely encourage checking that out if you want some more in-depth discussion on this from a variety of viewpoints. However, I know not everyone always has the time to sit through a 1 to 2 hour show, so I thought I'd do just a little bit of a shorter video today, kind of giving my thoughts on the Chi event, things I liked about it, things I didn't like about it, and the bugs. So we're going to start off with the positive here. I really actually ended up liking this event a lot more than I thought I would. Obviously, we got the information for it data mined a little bit early, so we did know kind of what tasks we were going to have to do, as well as what rewards we were going to get for it, which is pretty nice. That way, people could kind of prepare a little bit more. So I was kind of happy that information came out early. The kind of biggest thing that I think was great about it was it gave us a reason to go back through some of these areas that we really don't have a reason to go through. So if we look at the PvE bounties here, I liked how, we'll just concede this real fast. I really liked how it gave us a reason to go through some of the older bounties and stuff again. Like I think it's in Fellwood. Is it Fellwood that has the Mad Bomber? One of them has it. I guess it's not Fellwood. Maybe it is Barons? Might have been the Barons. Yeah, I think it is. Yep. Or yeah, the Mad Bomber one here was kind of an interesting one. I just like that it gave us a reason to go through some of these areas we don't really have a reason to ever go back to. Like when I'm doing normal farming, I'm either doing, 1-1 heroic in the Barrens or doing the Fellwood farming for tasks. I don't really have a reason to go into Winter Spring or Blackrock Mountain again. So I kind of like that they gave us a reason to go back and revisit some of these fights we've done before with a new kind of take or twist on it to add a little bit of challenge and interest there. I thought that was real interesting, and I hope that's something we do see more of, as obviously they put a fair bit of time and effort into creating all these bounties, so it's kind of a shame that there's not really a use for them once you beat them and clear them the first time on like normal or heroic. It's just they're not the most efficient ways to grind out your characters, so a lot of people don't touch them. And it's kind of nice to have a reason to go back to those every once in a while. The other thing that I did like about this event quite a bit was the fact that it gave us some kind of avenue to get coins for specifically the new mercenaries that were dropped. That has kind of been one of the bigger complaints in Mercenaries, is that it is so difficult to get coins for the new characters, especially when, in packs and rewards from bounties and stuff, there is often a high chance of getting coins for characters you've already completed. So it just kind of, and there's no way to use those coins for new characters, right? Because we still do not have an extra coins fix. So the fact that we got more coins for new characters relatively shortly after the release was definitely a pretty big positive. And I did really like that the event, not only did it give us a new epic mercenary for free essentially, but we also got a skin for it. I wish it would have been this skin instead of the chicken looking one, but I suppose, it's free, can't complain too much. I'm happy it was there at all. I would like to see more stuff like this in the future. I think it is great to be able to have some tangible way of earning a skin in game without having to gamble on their awful packs. So that's definitely a positive. Looking at the total coin rewards, we had about just under 500 Chi G coins. Obviously, Chi-Ji is kind of the namesake of the event, so it does make sense that they are going to get more coins out of the bunch. And then for the other 3 mercenaries, it ranged between 125 to 140 at the max for the other 4 mercenaries. And yeah, it was pretty solid. Could have been better, could have been worse, but rather have them than not have them. So those are kind of the positive things I had to say about it. Now, there were some not so positive things. While we're talking about coins, unfortunately, 500 coins isn't a whole ton. That's like what, like leveling up a skill 2, maybe 3 times, depending on how low your skill is. So it doesn't really help a whole ton with getting the mercenary up there in terms of playability. I mean, here we can see we need another 150 coins for this. So yeah, maybe like 3 skill level ups or something like that. It's just, it doesn't really go a long way in actually getting the mercenary where you want them to be using them in PvE or PvP content. So I do think they could definitely be a little bit more generous with the free coins from an event like this, especially when they're saying how the event is geared with more active players, more invested players in mind compared to newer players. If you're going to do that, I think you really have to make the rewards worth it, because some of those challenges were pretty tough. Not all of them, but specifically Heroic Localar gave a lot of people trouble. Definitely took me a few attempts on that one. So I don't mind having things being like more difficult and challenging, but you do want to feel like you are adequately rewarded for that, and I think they could have done a bit better in that regard, especially for the other new mercenaries, when you consider that you're really only getting, 120 to 140 coins total after doing all of the 10 tasks for those new mercenaries each. That's really just like 1 skill level, and that feels kind of bad to me. Like, it's better than nothing, but it's really not great, and they could definitely give more coins with it to kind of, drive people to want to do this stuff, because it feels like it's actually rewarding. The other thing is, we'll go back to the bounty board here. Once you complete your Chi-Ji tasks, the daily Toki tasks thing, where you get 225 random coins, that can be for any random mercenary for completing 2 bounties, that is kind of locked away until the end of the event. I don't really understand this decision. I think this is incredibly short-sighted. Obviously, the Toki coins weren't like a crazy value or anything like that, but if you start subtracting, 50 coins a day from every day that this event goes on, that actually takes up, a significant portion of those 1,015 coins we're getting through the 10 tasks, right? Now, obviously, those coins are random, so they're less likely to be for the new mercs or for what you really want, but I think the point still remains. It's not really good to have this gone, and I don't think there's any reason it should remain gone when you complete the event task. Like, it just doesn't really make sense to me that this spot is open. We know there are no more of these event tasks coming for this event, and yet every day you log in, we see the new timed event coming soon, but there's nothing there. So that's a weird decision. On top of that, they did specify that this event was supposed to be for more engaged and dedicated players, right? Well, you should really have the option of opting out of having that take up your Toki space, in my opinion. Like, I've heard from numerous people who haven't progressed through all the PvE content, or don't have the appropriate characters leveled up, or even have them at all in some instances, because some of these strategies do make use of quite a few legendary units. And for people who don't have access to that and feel like they can't do many of the event tasks, they're just losing out. entirely, right? Like they should have the option to click on the event and say, hey, I don't want to do this, and I can just get my Toki coins instead. Just another situation where it feels like they're kind of making a choice for the player that really should be the player's choice to make. And there's no reason once you complete the event that these should not be coming back. That's kind of inexcusable to me. There's just no logic there that I think is acceptable. Like, there's no reason I should have this empty space here for another week when I could be having the Toki space there and getting, even if it's a very small reward, it is what players are used to, right? That's kind of been the standard since launch. And anytime you take something like that away from players, even if it's just temporarily, it's not a good feeling. And when you're not really replacing it with anything else, it is an even worse feeling. So I really don't like that they did that. I think that was a pretty big miss. Another thing that I think was just a very much not like smart decision was they have locked a item for the new character, arguably their best item for PvP at least, behind a heroic fight we cannot do yet. So if you didn't see my other video talking about the Vandar and Kazakus fights, these are the last two fights of Aldarak Valley, and they are not currently unlocked. The only information we have about them is that they are going to be unlocked at the end of the Chi-Ji event, which is supposed to end on the 8th of March. So, I mean, I was kind of wondering how they were going to handle this since they only gave us 4 new bosses and we were going to have 5 new mercenaries, but this doesn't seem like the right way to do it. Especially locking their best PvP item behind it. It just is a very confusing move to me. I'm not a fan of them time gating content like that in general. I think it's rather foolish, and it's just artificially trying to extend the lifespan of content in a way that doesn't really benefit the player in any way. Like, it's kind of like how the Chi-Ji event and the files for it were already in the game as soon as we got the patch with the mini set, but we didn't have access to it for another week. And the reason for that, at least my understanding, is, well, they don't want to cannibalize, one release with the other, right? They don't want people playing this instead of playing with the new mini set cards. Well, I don't think there's a whole ton of overlap there. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but from what I've found, a lot of the people who are very involved in Mercenaries and the community really don't care for Constructed very much anymore. I mean, the majority of people I talk to at one point or another obviously were into Constructed. That's how they know about Hearthstone and whatnot, but a lot of the people I've talked to haven't played Constructed in a long time. It just kind of, the appeal wore off, and a lot of people kind of came back for Mercenaries, or, were playing Battlegrounds or something, and then Mercenaries sounded interesting, so they gave it a shot. So it's a really weird decision in my mind to time gate it like that when Mercenaries is clearly not being played by like the majority of the greater Hearthstone player base. So I think it's rather unnecessary to do these time gating things, because it just doesn't make the content any more interesting or meaningful. It's just arbitrarily spreading it out so players can't choose when they want to do it, and they have to do it when Blizzard says they can do it. And anytime you're taking player choice away like that and not giving anything beneficial in return, I would say it is a bad thing. So those are kind of some of the things I wasn't too big of a fan of for this event. I also think that they really should try and be making these a bit more new player friendly. I know they did specify with this one they wanted it for more engaged players, but I think that that doesn't have to be an either or scenario. I think there is a way to find middle ground there that can make both groups of players happy. And I mean, I heard from quite a lot of different players, many who hadn't played Mercenaries much since launch, that actually came back for this event. So even though their intention was to kind of bring in or give give the active players something interesting to do, it seemed to revitalize interest for a lot of people who hadn't played the game in a while and wanted to kind of see how it was like, a few months down the road. And that is a great opportunity to get people back in the mode. But, you know, if you haven't changed a lot of the issues people have problems with when they come back 4 or 5 months later, that's not a great sign, right? I think a lot of people were probably hoping some of the issues that had been noticed very immediately after launch had been dealt with. And unfortunately, as we all know, most of those issues just have not been dealt with yet. But those are kind of my more negative thoughts on the event. The last thing I want to talk about for it is the bugs. So there were a lot of bugs with this event. The biggest ones and the most frustrating ones for a lot of players from everything I've seen involved messing up the completion. So for anyone who doesn't know, there were some bugs like if you happen to grab a boon coin, so one of those benefits for casters, fighters, or protectors, it would just invalidate your run progression, regardless of if you completed the task according to how it asked you to or not. So that was one of those things where it's like, obviously that wasn't intended, but I saw numerous people very frustrated about the fact that, they were doing everything sometimes 2-3 times correctly, and then they were not getting progress for this task. And the only way they were able to find out, what was going wrong is by reaching out to other people in the community via Twitter or via Discord or other such methods. And that's really bad. Because I'm sure there are a lot of people who play this game casually PvE and don't really do a lot of interacting or researching about the mode. And those people would have no idea why this stuff is not going, like it isn't working. So that was really not a good thing. There were more bugs than just that one. There was one where having a summon or a spawn could mess things up. For example, one of the bounties involved using a full team of casters. And if you had on, for example, a Tamsin Death Rattle that summoned a neutral unit, that could invalidate your run. Or if you happen to grab a exploding potato from one of the mystery nodes, well, that's a neutral, invalidates your run. And there was just no explanation as to why this stuff was happening in game. People had to kind of consult outside sources to figure it out. And it was by far the most frustrating experience I think I've seen for more casual players in quite some time. So I do think there needs to be a little bit better focus on the QA. This is not something that is unique to Mercenaries. In my opinion, Hearthstone has really had a pretty sharp decline in terms of the amount of bugs that actually make it through into the main game in the last year or two. Don't really know the reason for this. Obviously, people can speculate about it, but I've just noticed a big uptick in the amount of bugs that make it to the live game compared to how things used to be in the past, 3, 4, 5 years ago. It just did not feel like so many bugs were making their way into the live version of the game. Or if they did, they were usually more fringe and not impacting every player. Another example is the Task 17 bug for Yulon. I did a little video covering that because I saw a lot of people asking questions about that one. So Yulon had a thing for his Task 17 where it says you have to block damage with Jade Flame Buffet. But as you can see here, there is no blocking damage. It blocks taunt and stealth and gives some health. There's no way to block damage with this. So I don't know if that's because the skill was changed at some point or it was just worded poorly or what have you. I figured it had something to do with actually the passive damage from his item, but nope, that doesn't get it either. You actually have to do a workaround using Sinestra to block damage on him to kind of get it. It's really weird, and it's not something that is explained in game at all. Another thing is some of the tasks are just improperly labeled here. As you'll see here, task 17 for Chi-Ji, death blow 550 times. Well, that sounds pretty insane, right? You know, having to kill an enemy over 500 times. Well, it turns out that is not what you actually have to do with Chi-Ji here. It's just dealing damage with Chi-Ji's abilities is what it seems to be. So that's a really big difference. And this one is not quite as bad because, you know, you can still progress it pretty easily. But the fact that all this stuff is kind of slipping through is not a good thing. And I think it would be better if, you know, they didn't worry about rushing out the event and focused on making sure that when it comes out, there are as few of these issues as possible. Most notably the ones like preventing progress, because that is by far the most frustrating experience out of the bunch from the reactions I've seen from players. So those are kind of my thoughts on the event. We did get a post on Twitter actually kind of mentioning the feedback from the event and stuff like that. It sounds like the next event is actually pretty far along. So it is unknown whether these, you know, bits of feedback and stuff from the Chi-Ji event will be implemented in time for the next event we get in Mercenaries, but hopefully, if not by that one, the one following can have, you know, some of these pieces of feedback registered with them, because I think the events are a great thing, and they're a great way to, you know, keep players invested in the mode, return players who may have taken a break, you know, whether that be in the last few weeks or players who stopped playing near the start of Mercenaries. It's a great idea, and unfortunately, it's kind of suffering from what I call the mantra of Mercenaries right now, in that they have a lot of great ideas, but the execution is kind of poor and leaves a lot to be wanted. So yeah, those are my thoughts on the event. I would love to hear yours as well. But that's going to do it for this one. If you enjoyed it, do remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And I will catch you in the next one. Peace.